Hello everyone, I'm Tina, and by the time this airs, I will be 54 years old. And 2 months ago, I was diagnosed through a biopsy with stage 1 curable breast cancer. And 2 weeks ago today, I had the surgery to remove that mass that threw up the red flags. So before I really dig into what has gone on since the last video that I posted, I just went back and watched the last 2 videos. The reason being is that I had intended to record a video on the Monday prior to my Tuesday surgery to, tell you what had gone on that week, because there was still stuff going on. What I had not intended to do during that video was to discuss the surgery, yet there I sat 48 hours out of surgery, still having some pain meds come through that they had put in me, and a little rough around the edges, we'll say. And so I rolled from that video into my surgery, and I really didn't give a lot of details on things. So when I went back and looked at that and then looked at the next video, I realized I kind of skipped over some stuff there. The other thing is I went back on and listened to some videos, because I have officially now, as I'm recording this, put up 2 videos on YouTube, so I am now officially releasing them. And that spurred me to look back and be like, did I actually ever tell people the full details of what I was doing? And I don't think I had. The reason being is that as you are being diagnosed and as you are having tests where that test begets another test and takes you down different avenues, it's all moving parts until you get into surgery. And so I think I had kept a few things close to the vest because I didn't know which direction they were going to go. So I'm going to step back for just a second and kind of give you the full details so that you understand what I did during my surgery. During that initial meeting that I had on what is now not quite 2 months ago with the breast surgeon, we decided what I was to have, how about that, was a lumpectomy in my left breast, because that's where the mass was. As you know, I ended up having biopsy done a week and a half prior to surgery on my right, and that ended up being fine. So lumpectomy or partial mastectomy on my left breast. When we were in that meeting and she was disclosing what my options were around a partial mastectomy or having a full mastectomy or a double mastectomy, again, some of my own choices, we threw out the option of discussing a reduction. And she lit up, because a reduction would mean that I would have additional tests on both breasts, and it would also mean that when she would go in and take the mass, she would have a little more leniency. And I may have discussed this. This is ringing a bell. I think as I was having something done, I may have discussed this. But she could take a larger, she could be more generous with what she took. Now that ended up paying off, because the MRI that I had found 2 little tentacles coming up on the north side of the mass, and she was able to encompass that. And that may not have been found had I not been having this reduction. So it was worth it in just that regard, as well as testing to make sure that those 2 mammary nodes that were found on the right were in fact benign. So that led to that biopsy. So anywho, with that, obviously I decided to have a reduction, and which brought in the plastics folks. Because the plastic folks were brought in, they could do the slicing and dicing in surgery, and my breast surgeon was able to focus in on that mass and get that removed, and the plastic surgeon was able to even out the 2 breasts, so it wasn't just a lumpectomy where they were going to have to fluff some stuff up. She was able to take what she needed and was able to have the plastics kind of get me squared away. Now, because of that, my surgery, my recovery, I should say, isn't just the lumpectomy, which is enough. It is recovering from the reduction as well, which is taking a little bit longer, and which is what is going to have to be watched by the plastic exposed to make sure that my incisions are ready to withstand any treatment. Okay, so where I stand now, surgery was done 2 weeks ago today. I am doing well, as you can see. I am still, as I was mentioning in the last video, I've been trying to behave more because it's necessary. My energy needs to go into healing all of this. A lot was disrupted there, and that's kind of where I am. I am behaving myself a bit more. Everybody in the house is trying to get me to behave, and it's effort in and of itself. So I think we're far enough ahead. As far as the surgery, I'm having flashbacks now as to how that all went. One part that I don't think I mentioned is that the lymph nodes. So my surgeon had anticipated that one lymph node would need to be taken. She normally would take the one closest to the mass and was planning on doing that. So before surgery, I wish I could remember what her tag said. Basically, nuclear medicine person came in, injected me with something that sends, it's able for them to detect what they need to detect on the lymph nodes. The surgeon ended up taking 2 lymph nodes. So that was part of the pre-op process. That's where I anticipated that I would need a drain, and I don't know, because I haven't met with either one of my surgeons yet, and Tom did, once I was coming through recovery, but I don't know how they managed to get it that I wouldn't need a drain, because normally where there's a gap or space there, as in where the lymph node was taken out, that can, basically get fluids, and the fluids would need to come out. And I had no drain. I had 2 lymph nodes out, no drain. So at least from a recovery and from just a care standpoint, that has been nice not to have that. I am still taking my 1,000 milligrams of Tylenol. I've tried to, it ends up being longer because I forget, between my 6 hours and at nighttime, but I tried to wean myself off some of it a little bit, but as things are healing, things pull. But everything looks great. The bruising is, how bruises will start turning yellow and start kind of feeding away, and that's what they're doing now. So from all that standpoint, that's where I am, and I'm doing well. I have upcoming appointments. Tomorrow I have my orientation with the Dempsey Center to get in on some of that self-care stuff, which I'm excited about. Yesterday I had a chiropractic appointment for the first time. It was all sitting up. His wife happened to go through a reduction in the last year, and he cares for her, and so kind of had the game plan in place where I can sit vertical and receive some adjustments. So that was nice. But with that, I also had my first solo drive. It was early in the morning, so there were no cars out. That went well. I do have to be careful because here in New England, our snow is leaving us. But with that, we have frost heaves and we have potholes right now, and that does not suit this well with a lot of bouncing. So I need to be careful of that, and maybe short rides for now. Okay, so tomorrow I have the Dempsey Center orientation that opens up the world for me as far as being able to go in there and receive kind of those self-care sessions, which I'm super excited about. And then in the afternoon, I have my first appointment post-surgery with my breast surgeon. And then the next day I have an appointment with the plastic surgeon. And they will check out to make sure everything's healing okay. Since I last saw you and the pathology report came in, now truly the intent would be for me to just be hearing this tomorrow at the meeting with the surgeon. However, as I've mentioned before, all these reports as they're coming in from the labs go straight into the patient portal at the same time that the physicians are receiving, or the providers are receiving, the reports too. So I received that, and of course I looked, which kind of forced the hand of the surgeon to call just to discuss. Reason for celebration: my 2 lymph nodes that were taken were free and clear of any cancer cells, which is great news. And the margins around the mass that she took were free and clear of any cancer cells, which was great news, because otherwise she may have had to go back in and take a little bit more of my left breast. So happy to hear that. The right was free and clear as well. It's a little weird and a little sketchy to read a pathology report, especially with the reduction, because they were able to take a lot of tissue, and the way they described is a lot of slicing and dicing, and thank goodness we have people out there that are drawn to these professions and do these things, because I don't know that I could handle it. As far as me and my recovery and my mental place, I guess, you know, I came off trying to really take care of myself this week. I've tested a few things. I tried being chill and watching some TV, and decided that's not up my alley during the daytime anyway. I don't know. I think, you know, I kind of like what I'm doing, and I'm trying to listen to myself a bit more. Oh, I tried napping during the day. I don't think I can do that either. I spent last week up until 11:30, 12 o'clock getting all fidgety and unable to settle in because I had naps. So I've eliminated naps. I can have rest time because I've got to keep these arms up. I learned that I don't think things were draining well, and then I had a lymph node kind of bulk up there, and that bummed me out. So I've been much better about that. I did go on a car ride that was probably a little bit too long for me. As I mentioned, the frost heaves and the potholes. So literally I even brought pillows and blankets, but I had to sit and hold my breasts while we rode. So I'm gonna keep that to a minimum for the time being. And again, you know, I've talked about just trying to increase everything that's healthy, increase my lean proteins, because there's a lot of rebuilding that needs to occur here. And then I have just been trying to connect and really settle into myself. And something that came through to me as I was doing that is that, you know, I call this an adventure detour, and I've done these adventure videos in the past. And one of the things that I've incorporated into them is that each time I did an adventure, to ask myself 3 things. You know, what am I grateful for? What inspires me? And how did I grow? And that kind of came in strong to me this week as to doing these videos, that I should be looking at those things each week. And so I'm like, okay, what inspires me? And what I have been what's come in for me this week is that cancer doesn't define us. And that's kind of the, not motto, but how I want to walk this. It is part of this journey I've been on, and I think is what has made it easier, is that, you know, a lot of these self-care things I've already been trying to incorporate into my life for the last 8 or 9 years. And as such, I'm not having the same reaction that I probably would have had 10 years ago had this happened to me. And instead I look at it, okay, what lessons am I supposed to learn on this journey? And I haven't been just smacked around with this. And I'm thankful for that. And I don't want to be a victim of it. And I heard somebody refer to even being a survivor of something. And it wasn't in reference to cancer, but it is just part of my journey, is how I want to look at this. And it's not that I don't want to be part of this cancer community, because I think I'm going to find things through that. But I'm not going to allow it to define who I am or how I walk this path going forward either. So that's what I'm inspired by. What I'm grateful for is my family, especially this little family within this household that I have. They've each stepped up in different ways, and I'm so grateful for that. I feel very, very fortunate, as well as grateful for this body that is healing itself, which is miraculous when we really stop and think about it. And so I know I need to give it every opportunity to heal itself, and so I need to allow it to do what I know it can do. And as far as how I have grown this last week, I think it's really sitting within myself, like finding my way to still. When we still, a lot of beautiful things can come from that, without getting in our heads. And so it's taking it day by day, and yeah, I think that's where I'm growing at a different level than maybe, or a different way than I have in the past. And that's, I think, it, because I'm looking at our 16 minutes, and that's a little lengthy for these videos. So that's where I am today after this last week, sitting at my 2-week anniversary. Thank you very much. And I will be back on next week with kind of how those other appointments go. And I'll be 3 weeks healed by then, and I'm sure I'll be starting to get into a little bit more trouble. And maybe I've already gone to an adventure at the Dempsey Center and can share some of that as well. So thank you all for listening. For anybody out there that's going through cancer or has a loved one going through cancer, I feel for you. I send my love to you. But, you know, we've all got this. And for those coming along to see what I'm up to, thank you for joining me. I always appreciate your love and support. So take care, everyone.